Good morning, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Believe me, it's very difficult to be the last speaker the session, but I will try to be as precise as possible. Just to give you a quick background, like we discussed this morning, just to add to that discussion, for out-of-school children initiative, it's not only the numbers that we are talking, but who are these children, why they are out of school, and then if they are in school, why they are at the risk of dropping out. What are some barriers that these children are facing? So reviewing and understanding the multiple vulnerabilities and dimension of exclusion, in UNICEF South Asia office, we have made an attempt to see now what works, especially to address the out-of-school children issue. So we have commissioned a literature review, basically from around the globe to see what are those high-impact interventions that works. So it has been both the primary documents, like the research publication, and the secondary documents like the case studies. But altogether, around 157 documents were reviewed and analyzed. I will not go into the definition of the out-of-school children here, but the important point we make that this review also focused some other areas, like for example, the needs for different interventions, the on-time intervention for the on-time enrollment intervention, for example, promote enrollment and dropout retention and other pathways, the learning pathways. So what are those other interventions in connection with the barriers that children are facing in the region and elsewhere? One important point here is like, well, you already had a lot of statistics. The purpose of showing this slide is that this review was also, we tried to link with the barriers that children in South Asia are facing. And as mentioned earlier, that this was also an attempt to follow up on the South Asia study that was conducted in 2014. And that tells us that South Asia is the home of around 36 million children in primary and lower secondary age who are out of school. So it's the highest number. And these children are facing multiple barriers, ranging from household poverty to social institutional environment related to disability, language, armed conflict, gender discrimination, and child labor. So all the studies also trying to see some solution within these areas that these barriers that children are facing in South Asia. Altogether, it was difficult. So we have also applied a criteria for analysis. But the criteria was also the effectiveness for these interventions, particularly if we have some traction that these interventions have helped reduce number of out-of-school children, has prevented dropout, and has increased education enrollment, particularly in formal schools, and have improved retention at a primary and transition to secondary, etc. So based on the criteria, we have come up with a number of broad areas that the study tells us that it works in many contexts for addressing the issue of out-of-school children. And these areas, early childhood development, is the enrollment campaigns in different contexts, is the different learning pathways, and it's also the education sector plans, the more upstream work, where out-of-school children can be effectively factored if followed. And also the GPE support, which in South Asia is quite visible, that most of the countries have the sector plan and the GPE support in the region. And last, the effective education management information system. I think there is a problem with, it's not moving. Anyway, I'll continue. I hope the technology will help us. One important, okay, thank you. One important point is that these are not the exhaustive list, very frankly, and all those interventions that I'm talking are not the only interventions that we thought, or the study tell us, the evidence tell us that they are the most effective. But one area is the ECD, which sometimes we forget when we're talking about out-of-school children. But the ECD is an area, it also goes back to the discussion, the multiple dimensions of exclusion that we talk. But ECD is also in the context of school readiness we have reviewed. And it has showed more impact when it comes to school retention and completion. And we have chosen few very good examples from around the globe. One important one is from within the region, like the India Integrated Child Development Service, that has reached to the largest number of children, like for example, 84 million children for nutrition and 37.7 million children for preschooling. So these are also one of the reminders that how ECD plays a role in addressing the multiple aspects of the out-of-school children, which is altogether very complex. The enrollment campaign has been very effective, particularly in the context of emergency, early recovery, and post-conflict situation. But at the same time, the literature evidence are very limited for the long-time impact of the enrollment campaign. But the evidence also shows if the enrollment campaigns are combined with number of interventions related to health, nutrition, and some other factors which are pushing children from school. The last point I would like to make, the most important one, is the pro-poor economic incentive. This is an area the conditional and non-conditional cash transfer has really produced significant result in many parts, particularly in Latin America. So this also shows that those programs who have a very sound strategies for identifying clearly the poor children, the most marginalized children, those who are out-of-school children, and then linking them up with the programs and also with the randomized impact evaluation of these programs. This has shown a significant impact for the reduction of out-of-school children and also promoting higher education or transition to the next level. Non-formal education, there are multiple pathways that the study tell us, but we are just focusing on few, like the bridge programs, multi-grade schooling for non-formal, vocational, skill training, community-led program, private school outreach, etc. For the non-formal education, for the non-formal education, there are several strategies that has worked. So we have listed those strategies, but still they are not exhaustive. The important point is, if non-formal is linked with a kind of acquisition for work-oriented skills, when people and children can link with their lives, that has made a significant impact in many parts of the world. Sector plan is another area, the most at upstream level, where some countries have made some progress, but it is largely not fully utilized for particularly bringing the issue upfront of out-of-school children in the sector plans. So it provides an enormous opportunity that the sector plan at upstream level can be a best instrument to mainstream the issue of out-of-school children. There are several recommendations, but we'll stick to quick 3. Like the ECD program, economic incentives, and targeted multi-sectoral engagement always work. There are significant evidences that it works for addressing the out-of-school children. So it needs to be expanded. The diversity of the flexible learning strategies is important, but at the same time, the quality actually matters, and innovations in flexible learning strategies matters. So this is another area, if expanded, can produce more lasting results. The third one is the sector plan. As I mentioned, if properly engaged with the sector-wide approaches, the out-of-school children issue can broadly can better be placed in the heart of the policy dialogue and the larger national education system. Last but not the least, the EMIS. Currently, EMIS is not properly covering out-of-school children, while EMIS is largely used for sector planning, analysis, and informing policy. So it's a high time that if EMIS also covers the non-formal education, at the same time, if it integrates the out-of-school children with the formal administrative data, so that the evidence tells us that can produce more lasting results. Thank you very much. You can download the report. The link is here. It provides more details of all the interventions that I just mentioned. Thank you.